The series begins with a flashback to the first season. It's been exactly 6 days since Will Byers disappeared, and his mom still can't find any peace in her everyday life. This opening scene finally gives us a glimpse into what Will went through back in the world known as the Upside Down. In that twisted world, we see a 12-year-old Will inside Castle Byers, lying there and singing, "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" As we recall from Season 1, he and his brother Jonathan often played that song in Will's room when their parents argued. Suddenly, Will hears footsteps outside. Moments later, the monster, Demogorgon, bursts into Castle Byers. Will fires a shotgun at it, the one he'd grabbed in the real world, then bolts for his life. He scrambles to the top of a tree and watches the Demogorgon sniff around, trying to track him down. When it catches his scent, the creature climbs up after him. With no escape, Will leaps toward a neighboring tree, but fails to grab on, falls, and loses consciousness. The Demogorgon doesn't kill him. Instead, it drags him away to a darker power. That power belongs to Vecna, the show's big bad, who ultimately controls the Demogorgons, the Mind Flayer, and all other monsters in the Upside Down. Vecna approaches Will, and from the wall emerges a vine-like tentacle. He forcibly feeds Will a glowing, viscous substance and ominously promises that together they will do beautiful things. That's why by the end of Season 1, Will coughs up a parasite in the bathroom, a chilling echo of what happened to him in the Upside Down. The mood of the show is pure 80s-style horror with strong nods to classics like Alien. By the way, if you want a quick recap of Alien 2, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss it. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll drop a full Alien recap next. The story jumps forward to the present day, set on November 3rd, 1987. This is more than a year after the events of Season 4. The town of Hawkins, Indiana has changed dramatically since the portals opened because of Vecna. Many residents have already moved away, convinced that everything from the previous season was just a natural disaster, while the government continues to hide the truth about the Upside Down. A large part of the town has been evacuated. Jonathan, Will, Joyce, Nancy, and Elle are temporarily staying at Mike's house because their own home was destroyed. Mike's dad, Ted, is far from thrilled that Elle and the Byers family are living under his roof. Will, Mike, and Mike's younger sister, Holly, ride their bikes to school. Robin now works as a radio host, with Steve acting as her assistant. On air, Robin shares that this is her 500th broadcast, talks about the town's quarantine, and announces that she has no plans to leave Hawkins. She describes the massive crack in the ground as a natural event similar to an earthquake. Robin also mentions a restricted zone guarded by the United States military where no one is allowed to enter. Her new girlfriend, Vicky, is listening to the broadcast as well. Suddenly, the transmission cuts off due to technical issues as the connection drops. Steve contacts Dustin over the radio. Steve thinks the military blocked the signal because Robin didn't follow censorship rules, but Dustin doubts that since she didn't break any guidelines. Dustin arrives at school wearing a Hellfire Club shirt, earning a wave of disapproving looks. As we remember from Season 4, Eddie was the founder of the club. It was actually just a group of tabletop role players who enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons, but many people started calling it something sinister. Before Eddie passed away, he made Dustin the leader of the club. Even though the club no longer exists, Dustin continues to wear the shirt in Eddie's memory. A group of basketball players approaches him. Their team captain, Andy, is upset and tells Dustin not to wear that shirt anymore. Dustin refuses, and Andy decides to tear it apart. Before he can do anything, Lucas steps in. Andy calls him a traitor, but Lucas stands his ground and warns him not to touch Dustin or there will be consequences. Will and Mike arrive and back up their friend. Andy shoves Dustin and tells him again to stop wearing the shirt before walking away. Lucas asks Dustin to stop wearing Hellfire merch so Andy won't be provoked, but Dustin refuses. Mike and Will agree with Lucas and ask Dustin to take the shirt off, yet Dustin tells them to stay focused on Vecna and leaves. The scene then cuts to a missing person poster hanging in the school hallway. It shows a message, missing 15-year-old girl, Jane Hopper, which is Elle. In the next scene, a girl runs through the forest, chased by several U.S. soldiers. They eventually catch her, but it turns out she is not Elle, only someone who resembles her. We then see the real Elle, training intensely at a junkyard and practicing her telekinesis stasis so she can face Vecna again. Hopper tells her she set a new record this time. Even so, Elle is frustrated and feels like she was too slow. Hopper suggests taking a break and grabbing waffles, but Elle refuses and insists on continuing her training. A mysterious truck arrives in Hawkins, and inside is Murray Bauman, a former journalist and conspiracy theorist. He introduces himself under the name Austin Milbridge, and the military lets the truck through the checkpoint. Meanwhile, Robin, Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan are searching for the instruction manual for the radio so they can fix it. Nancy eventually finds the manual, which explains that they need to repair the relay block. The four of them head over to the relay tower. Jonathan decides to climb up to fix it, but Steve insists he would do better because he considers himself half monkey. In the end, both of them climb up at the same time, racing to see who can fix the relay block faster while the girls watch. Robin calls them Neanderthals. At that moment, the truck carrying Murray pulls up. Steve and Jonathan reach the top at the same time, repair the relay block, and shout down that they fixed it, but Robin and Nancy have already walked off. Murray is with them, handing out various military supplies. It turns out he has been secretly transporting gear from a restricted Hawkins military base while pretending to be a delivery driver. Steve and Jonathan walk over. Murray gives Steve a drink and some peanut butter boppers, a snack that was extremely popular in the 1980s, and hands Jonathan a cassette with music by Johnny Cochran. Jonathan usually listens to rock and roll, but Murray suggests he give jazz a try. Murray then shows Nancy classified documents revealing that the military plans to enter the Upside Down today. Elsewhere, Dustin enters the science classroom filled with snakes and quietly takes one of them. In the cafeteria, Lucas talks with Will and Mike. Lucas says Dustin once confessed that he wants to bring back the Hellfire Club. Lucas thinks Dustin has completely lost it. Dustin sits down right as he hears them talking about someone acting wild, but the boys quickly clarify they were talking about Andy. Robin appears on the radio again. She broadcasts an encrypted message revealing the time and location for Operation Crawl. Operation Crawl is a tactical mission where Hopper must enter the Upside Down for scouting once the military opens a gateway. While everyone discusses the plan, Steve wonders if Vecna might not be around anymore. He thinks they might be chasing a ghost since Elle cannot sense him, and Will has not gotten chills since the earthquake. No one has seen Vecna since their battle last season. Nancy disagrees and believes he is still out there. Jonathan reminds Steve about Vecna's vision of Hawkins in flames, the one he showed Nancy. Nancy says they need to be absolutely sure Vecna is gone for good and will never return. While Dustin, Mike, and Lucas chat, Will suddenly enters a trance while staring at the sky, which begins to swirl. When the others ask if he is all right, Will says he had a strange feeling and saw the sky turning. At the same time, Holly, the younger sister of Mike and Nancy, spins on a playground carousel while staring upward. Her classmate Derek shows up, spins the wheel faster, and then runs off. When the teacher calls the kids back inside, Holly leaves, waving to a figure nearby. The teacher notices Holly talking to herself, but Holly is actually speaking to someone she calls Mr. What's-It. No one but Holly can see him. In the next scene, a man enters a military lab and approaches a woman named Dr. K. He tells her they still have not been able to find Elle. We then see that this military lab is actually located inside the Upside Down. Elle desperately wants to track down Henry and join Hopper on Operation Crawl, but Hopper refuses to let her go. Joyce tells him that Elle is ready to face Vecna if he is still out there, but Hopper disagrees because the Upside Down is filled with armed units. He does not want to put her in danger for the sake of scouting missions. At school, Eddie opens his locker and jumps back when he finds a snake inside. Mike waits outside to pick up Holly after classes. When she does not come out, he goes inside, calling her name, and eventually finds her sitting on a bench reading. Her teacher had already called their mother to talk about Holly's imaginary friend. Holly tells Mike about Mr. What's-It, explaining that this friend wants to keep her safe from a creature that wants to take her away. Mike tells her that whenever he feels scared, he thinks of Mike the Brave and pulls out his Dungeons and Dragons figurine. He gives Holly a figurine made especially for her and suggests that the next time she feels frightened, she can rely on Holly the Heroic, a priestess with divine abilities who can open a doorway to any dimension. Max remains in the hospital in a coma. Lucas plays her favorite Kate Bush song for what feels like the 100th time, hoping she will wake up. At the hospital, Will notices Robin. She is there visiting her girlfriend, Vicky. Robin admits she used money she found in the belongings of a man who passed away at the hospital and invites Vicky to dinner. They share a kiss, and Will sees the moment. Like Robin, Will is part of the queer community. As a reminder, he secretly has feelings for Mike, who is in a relationship with Elle. Startled, Will drops his cola and quickly runs off, but Robin catches a glimpse of him sprinting down the hallway. She realizes Will saw everything. Dustin goes to Eddie's grave and finds it marked up again by local troublemakers. He wishes the town finally knew the truth about what really happened to Eddie, about the sacrifice he made, and about the fact that he was a hero. When Dustin touches the writing on the gravestone, he realizes it is blood instead of paint. Then he notices chopped up pieces of the snake he hid earlier in Andy's school locker, lying on the ground beneath the headstone. At that moment, Andy and his group show up. Dustin grabs the cleaning chemicals he brought to tidy up Eddie's grave and throws them at Andy and his friends. He tries to fight back, but it does not work out. Andy and his friends overpower him. While this is happening, Lucas tries to reach him on the radio, but Dustin does not respond. The whole team gathers. Mike and Elle are happy to see each other and hug. They sit on the roof, talking through everything that has happened. Mike is convinced Vecna is still out there and believes they can defeat him and then live happily ever after. It is clear Mike and Elle still have no real chemistry between them. The group moves on to the plan. Steve turns on the satellite receiver and starts picking up a strong signal. He needs someone to go with him, especially now that Dustin is missing, and Will volunteers. Joyce refuses and sends Jonathan instead. Will is upset. Hopper goes into the woods and then into the underground tunnels that were discovered in the second season. At home, Holly puts on the pendant with the little figure Mike gave her. She hears her parents arguing about her imaginary friend, Mr. Whatsit. Holly goes upstairs to her room and starts crying. Hopper follows the tunnels and reaches an abandoned radio shop near the military base. Lucas and Mike watch the military trucks through binoculars. A group with flame gear heads toward the portal and starts using their equipment. More trucks arrive. Hopper secretly slips into one of them. 4 military vehicles enter the portal leading into the Upside Down, and Hopper is among them. Once they pass through, the portal closes behind them. Hopper keeps radio contact with the team. Nancy and the others track the convoy using a map and projector. The military vehicles run into trouble, and Jonathan tells Steve to stop the van because they are losing the signal. Hopper radios that the soldiers suddenly stopped. Elle and the rest of the group suspect the soldiers realize Hopper climbed into one of the trucks. At that moment, Will experiences a vision from the Upside Down. A Demogorgon attacks the convoy. It does not notice Hopper. The radio receiver breaks. Will collapses but soon comes to and says the Demogorgon is heading toward Mike's family. Nancy and Elle rush there. Ted is out in the yard playing golf, while Karen is relaxing in the bathroom with a glass of wine. Meanwhile, Holly is in her room, upset and overwhelmed. Suddenly, her lamp flickers, and a portal to the Upside Down opens above her ceiling. A Demogorgon emerges from it. It tries to pull Holly inside. She clings to her bed frame and calls for her mom. Holly manages to break free and run from the creature. She rushes to the bathroom where Karen is. The lights keep flickering, and Karen notices that Holly is covered in blood. Outside, Mike's dad sees the house pulsing and flickering. At the same time, Nancy and Elle are driving toward Mike's house. The Demogorgon bursts into the bathroom. Karen and Holly hide underwater in the bathtub. The creature picks up their scent and prepares to strike, but then it hears the voice of Mike's dad, Ted. It attacks him and throws him through a wall. Karen and Holly run. Right as they reach the exit, another portal opens, and another Demogorgon steps out. Karen hits it several times with a broken wine bottle. Nancy and Elle enter the house. Nancy sees blood on the floor and her mother, badly hurt but alive. Karen says the creature took Holly into the Upside Down. Seeing the open portal, Elle enters it to save Hopper and Holly. Mike, Lucas, and Nancy take Karen and Ted to the hospital. Nancy washes the blood off her hand and tells Mike that what happened is their fault. She says their parents and Holly would have been safe if not for them. Mike insists they came as fast as they could, but Nancy says they should have tried to get their parents out of Hawkins, or at least told them the truth. Lucas interrupts. He says that today Today is the 3rd of November, and Will was taken on the 6th of November, which means they have 3 days until everything changes. He does not believe this is a coincidence. United States military teams arrive at Mike's house and begin investigating the scene. The colonel is briefed on everything Nancy said. He demands access to all city surveillance recordings. Then we see Elle in the upside down. She hears something moving in the woods, and thinking it might be Vecna, gets ready to fight, but Hopper steps out of the shadows. They follow the trail of Demogorgon blood, left by the same creature Karen managed to injure with the broken wine bottle. Joyce and Robin are trying to figure out how to fix the radio receiver. Will sits at the table looking deeply unsettled. When Robin heads to the garage to grab spare fuses, Joyce sits down next to Will and asks what is going on. Will admits that his visions have become much clearer and more intense than before. He felt as if he was actually there, as if he was the Demogorgon itself, seeing and sensing everything the creature did. Will explains that he could not feel Vecna when he was in California, but the connection has returned now. Robin comes back and interrupts them. She suggests that Will is basically acting like a living antenna, and the closer he is to Vecna, the stronger the signal gets. The farther away he is, the weaker it becomes. Will talks about what he saw in the forest and says he wants to try spying on Vecna, but Joyce immediately refuses. She does not want Will putting himself in danger again. Will says they need to find Holly, and there is no other choice. Joyce disagrees. Meanwhile, Steve is siphoning gasoline from a girl he knows. Then he asks Jonathan how Nancy is doing. Jonathan explains that her parents survived the attack. Ted was put into a medically induced sleep, Karen underwent surgery, and Holly has been taken. Steve suggests stopping by the hospital to bring Nancy flowers, but Jonathan is firmly against it. Jonathan tells him to calm down, hinting that Steve is trying to take Nancy away from him. Steve pushes back and says he is worried about Nancy because she is his friend, and calls Jonathan paranoid. Just then, Dustin rides up to their car on his bike. Steve is shocked by the state of his best friend. At the hospital, Lucas sits beside Max, who is still in a coma, and tells her everything that has happened. He says Elle will not be able to face Vecna on her own and that she will need help. He begs Max to wake up and join the final fight because without her, they cannot win. Lucas cries and pleads with Max to come back. In the hallway, Mike picks up 2 cups of coffee, one for himself and one for Nancy. On the way, he notices a children's book titled A Wrinkle in Time in the kids' room. Nancy tells Mike that she still is not allowed to visit their parents because they are in critical condition. Mike asks if Holly has ever said anything to her about Mr. Whatsit. He then explains that at school, Holly told him that Mr. Whatsit warned her that creatures might try to take her. Mike is sure that Mr. Whatsit is not just something Holly imagined, but someone real. And if he truly exists, he might know far more than they think. Nancy and Mike start thinking about how they can track down this mysterious Mr. Whatsit. Steve, Jonathan, and Dustin drive in the van. Instead of admitting what really happened, Dustin tells Steve that he crashed his bike. Steve immediately sees through the lie. He fills Dustin in on everything that happened while he was gone. Dustin cannot understand why Vecna targeted Holly specifically. Steve starts getting upset. He cannot believe Dustin was roughed up, especially after he always tried to keep him safe. After fixing the radio, Joyce tries to contact Hopper. Meanwhile, Robin and Will quietly slip out of the garage without Joyce noticing and head to the spot in the woods where Will had his vision earlier that day. But this time, he does not feel anything. At the military lab, a man reports to Dr. K that Elle was at the Wheeler house the night the girl named Holly vanished, and that she is now in the upside down. Elle notices an injury on Hopper's side that he tried to hide. She gently treats it, remembering how Max taught her to do it. Hopper admits that Elle reminds him a lot of himself when he was younger. He tells her about his father and how they never got along when he was a kid. He also tells her about his daughter Sarah, calling her brave and full of belief, and says he truly thought she would pull through. Hopper breaks down, admitting that he cannot stand the thought of losing Elle the way he lost Sarah. Suddenly, they hear the roar of a Demogorgon and head toward the sound. Nancy and Mike talk to a doctor at the hospital, asking for permission to see their mom, but he refuses. They decide to sneak in without approval. Meanwhile, in the van, Jonathan hears a strange noise coming through the radio. Joyce hears the same sound and immediately assumes it is Hopper. Dustin explains that it is not him. Later episodes will reveal where that signal actually comes from. Robin and Will continue walking through the woods, talking quietly. Robin asks if Will was at the hospital the previous day. Will says he was not there. Robin then opens up about her situation with Vicky and asks him not to tell anyone. Will says he did not see anything. Suddenly, Robin spots a mandala, A mandala is a symbol in Buddhism and Hinduism that represents the universe. At that moment, Will experiences another vision. He tells Robin he heard a child laughing, then starts walking toward an unseen point, and Robin follows him. Hopper and Elle continue toward the sound they heard earlier, but instead of a demogorgon, they find a massive wall. Elle discovers Holly's shoe and realizes the girl was here and was most likely pulled through the wall. Mike and Nancy change into a patient and a nurse outfit. They manage to find Karen's room. Nancy holds her hand and tries to talk to her. Karen wakes up but cannot speak because of an injury to her throat. Nancy hands her a pen and notepad. Karen asks where Holly is. Nancy explains that Holly was taken. Mike adds that there is someone who knows where Holly is, someone they can ask for help, a person Holly called Mr. Whatsit. Karen writes that a teacher saw Holly talking to Mr. Whatsit, but she herself never saw him. Will and Robin arrive at a playground. Karen describes the figure Holly talked about, someone tall, wearing a vest, refined, kind, holding a stopwatch. Holly called him Henry. Will realizes that the figure he saw at the playground was Vecna. It becomes clear that Mr. Whatsit is Vecna, also known as Henry Creel. It turns out Holly is in the Creel family mansion within the Upside Down. In the Upside Down, Hopper and Elle try to break through the wall, but nothing works. Far in the distance, they see the headlights of military vehicles and hear them getting closer. The soldiers use a special device that sends out powerful sound waves, and these waves completely overwhelm Elle, almost like her own version of kryptonite. Meanwhile, Joyce drives through the woods looking for Robin and Will after they ran off to track down Vecna without telling her. She finds them and scolds Robin for putting her son in danger. Will steps in, explaining that they learned about Vecna's plan to take more kids, and that this information could help them protect the next target. He adds that he is not a little kid anymore and wants to stop Vecna once and for all. Derek, Holly's classmate, also sees Mr. Whatsit. In the Upside Down, Holly sits at the table having breakfast with Henry inside the Creel house. He tells her that her parents will come for her as soon as they are well enough. Henry mentions that Derek will be arriving soon, and Holly clearly is not excited about that. Henry reassures her that if Derek behaves badly or tries to bother her, he will send him back to Hawkins. Henry and Holly step outside. He warns her never to go into the forest and tells her he will be gone for the entire day, leaving the house in her care. Before leaving, he asks her to check the mailbox. Inside, she finds a Tiffany cassette and a tape player. A moment later, Holly runs back toward the house, but as she reaches the door, she hears a strange sound coming from the forest. Something or someone seems to be watching her. The military arrives at the wall and begins searching for Elle. Hopper and Elle hide behind a billboard. Elle is still overwhelmed by the painful sound waves coming from the device. One of the soldiers finds Hopper's knife near the wall and activates the sound device again, making the pain surge through Elle until it becomes unbearable. She cries out, revealing their location. Hopper manages to take down several soldiers and destroys the device. The pain finally stops and Elle regains her strength, quickly handling the remaining soldiers with ease. Will and Lucas are stunned when they see the state Dustin is in after being roughed up by the basketball players. Once everyone is inside, Will tells the group about his abilities and explains that Derek is Vecna's next target. In his vision, he saw Vecna slip into Derek's mind and look at the world through Derek's eyes. Nancy also tells the group what they discovered. Henry is actually Mr. Whatsit, and they start putting together a plan. According to this plan, they intend to take Derek and bring him to an abandoned barn, and when the Demogorgon shows up at the barn, they want to attach a tracking transmitter to it. The most important rule is to keep Derek's eyes covered so Vecna cannot pinpoint his location. Dustin and Lucas worry about what happens if the Demogorgon gets to Derek before they do, or if Derek wakes up and alerts his entire family, which would land all of them at the police station. Mike adjusts the plan and says they need to find someone Derek's family trusts, someone who can give them a bit of sleep medicine so the group can safely take Derek without causing chaos. Meanwhile, Holly dances to a Tiffany song and makes herself something to eat. As she explores the house, she finds a photo of a young Henry. She even manages to change into a nice outfit. Suddenly, Holly hears the doorbell and spots a dark figure by the window. When she looks outside, she notices the mailbox flag is raised. Inside the mailbox, she finds an envelope with a note that says she is needed at a marked spot and signed by Henry. The envelope also contains a map that leads through the forest to that location and includes a compass. In the Upside Down, the military and a colonel arrive at the large wall. The colonel is furious and orders the team to find Hopper and bring him back safely. Hopper and Elle have already escaped and taken Sergeant Akers with them, hoping to get answers. Hopper wants to know when the next supply supply convoy will arrive so they can return to the real world, while Elle wants to stay in the Upside Down to study the mysterious wall. Elle suggests a compromise. She will enter Acre's mind to learn about the convoy and also gather information about the large wall. At school, Mike and Lucas talk to Erica, Lucas's younger sister. Erica used to be friends with Derek's sister Tina, but the two of them had a falling out. After a bit of convincing, Erica agrees to help. Robin and Will head to the hospital to steal sleeping pills, the kind they plan to use to knock out Derek's family. Suddenly, Robin spots Vicky inside and ducks out of sight because she had promised Vicky a date, which now she has to cancel. While they hide, Will asks Robin how she knew Vicky was interested in her. Robin explains that there were signs, little touches, exchanged looks, until it all became obvious and eventually turned into something more. Robin and Will find the sleeping pills and take them. Meanwhile, Murray delivers the supplies: fuel cans, ammo, rubber balls, barbed wire, flares, and other gear for a trap. Steve starts reworking the van to make it lighter and faster. Dustin shows up with an idea. Why not turn Steve's old ride into a new surveillance vehicle with some modifications? Nancy decides that the best way is to shoot the tracking transmitter right at the Demogorgon using a shotgun. Jonathan and Murray speak privately. It turns out Jonathan had planned to propose to Nancy. Inside the cassette tape Murray gave him earlier in the season, there was a hidden engagement ring. But after the Demogorgon attacked Nancy's parents, he postponed it. Murray tells Jonathan not to wait. Now is the right moment. Once Akers wakes up, Hopper questions him about the wall, but Akers refuses to say anything. Then Hopper asks about the lab. Again, silence. Hopper reminds him that Elle already probed his mind and told him they're looking for answers. That might convince Akers to talk. Inside Akers' mind, using her psychic powers, Elle sees a memory. Akers arriving at the military lab in the Upside Down. Elle watches as Dr. K enters a locked room with a large metal door, like a vault. Hopper demands to know what's behind the door. Akers swears he doesn't know. Elle tries to use her telekinesis to break the door down, but Akers loses consciousness. Hopper rushes to check on Elle. She tells him that Dr. K is keeping someone powerful behind that door. Elle says it's possible the military is holding Vecna in that lab. Meanwhile, Holly wonders whether she should follow the instructions from the letter or stay home as Henry told her. She draws strength from the little figure Mike gave her earlier. Then she decides to go. She heads into the forest, following the map. Derek is playing on his console when his older sister Tina walks in and shuts the game off. At that moment, Erica arrives at their house with a pie as an apology. It works. Tina lets her inside. While Derek's whole family is having dinner, we find out that the pie was actually meant to make the family fall asleep. Everyone eats it except Tina, who says she is on a diet. The pie sends Derek's father, mother, and brother into a deep sleep, leaving Tina as the only one still awake. Erica gives her an injection to make sure she goes under too. With their eyes covered and their hands tied, Derek and his family are loaded into the van. Joyce, Robin, Erica, and Will head to the barn. The rest of the group gets the house ready for the Demogorgon's arrival, using the same kind of improvised traps you would see in the classic Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin. Will talks with Joyce. Joyce admits she is worried about him and remembers how, when he disappeared 4 years earlier, she felt like she was losing her mind. Meanwhile, Steve and Dustin notice the streetlights flickering, which means the Demogorgon is getting close. We see the creature tear open a gateway on the ceiling of Derek's room as it approaches his bed. The group jumps into action. Nancy manages to tag the Demogorgon with a tracking device before it slips back into the Upside Down. Nancy, Jonathan, Steve, and Dustin follow the signal by car, but it suddenly cuts out. Dustin manages to pick it up again and is stunned when he realizes the creature has changed direction. Back at the barn, Derek wakes up. Will suddenly understands that Vecna must be nearby, and the creature's change in direction was a sign that it is heading straight for them, toward the barn. At the same time, Holly reaches the location she has been searching for and walks up to a stone wall. She spots an opening and calls for Henry, but instead she notices a figure moving inside the cave. Holly runs into the forest while someone chases after her. She hides behind a cluster of rocks. The figure approaches her, bends down, and the camera pulls back to reveal that it is Max, who greets Holly with a simple hello. Joyce tries to convince Derek to work with them, telling him they are trying to help. She explains that a creature is after him and they want to keep him safe. Derek notices Will and calls him a zombie because, as we remember, he once vanished and then came back. Back in the second season, a lot of classmates teased Will by calling him the zombie boy, and the nickname stuck with him even after 4 years. Once Joyce lays out the whole situation, Derek says he believes her. Joyce unties him, but he pushes her to the ground and shoves Robin and Erica out of the way. Will grabs him, but Derek throws sand in Will's face, breaks free, and climbs onto the roof of the barn, kicking the ladder down. Everyone tries to convince him to come down, but Derek refuses. Robin and the others repeat that they only want to help, but he ignores them. At that moment, Will has a vision of the creature racing toward the barn. Joyce grabs an axe just as the Demogorgon bursts inside. She swings at it, forcing it to retreat outside. Right then, Steve, Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan arrive and ram the creature with Steve's car. The Demogorgon opens a gateway and escapes into the Upside Down. Steve hits the gas and follows it. Inside the Upside Down, they move in the direction the creature fled. Will has another vision. 4 children trapped in the Upside Down, with tendrils covering their mouths, the same way it once happened to him. Joyce tries to reach Steve and the others, but they do not respond. Robin immediately understands they must have gone into the Upside Down. In the barn, Will begins sketching what he saw. He explains that he saw 4 children, but Vecna wants to take 8. Altogether, there should be 12, and no one knows why. Mike and Lucas arrive at the barn and say they saw the military take Debbie Miller and several other kids from their homes on the way there, though they have no idea why it happened. The scene shifts to the laboratory in the Upside Down. Dr. K and the Colonel are discussing the children Vecna has taken. Dr. K orders that all children in Hawkins aged 5 to 9 be brought to the military base in Hawkins. It turns out she was the one who gave this order. She mistakenly believes that Elle is the one taking the children after being seen at Mike's house. She doesn't realize that the children are needed by Vecna, and gathering them all in one place is actually the worst possible move. Meanwhile, in the Upside Down, Max helps Holly tend to a scraped knee. Holly mentions she knows Max because she used to come over to their house often. She's confused about how Max can be talking to her when just yesterday she was in a coma at the hospital. Max leads Holly to the cave where she had been hiding, revealing that she, not Henry, wrote the note to make sure Holly would come to the cave. Holly isn't sure if this Max is real, so Max tells a funny story about how Mike tried to give himself a bright orange mohawk as a kid. After that, Holly starts to trust her. In the cave, Max explains to Holly that they're inside a memory, a world created by Henry. It's not the real world, it's a prison. Meanwhile, on the real world side, the children are being transported by military bus to a secret base in Hawkins. The group discusses how to rescue them. Mike comes up with a plan. Derek needs to go undercover to find out which children know Mr. Whatsit, and then they need to be hidden in a safe place before Vecna shows up. In the Upside Down, Hopper and Elle are scouting the laboratory. Hopper is skeptical about Elle's theory that Vecna is inside the facility. Elle decides to infiltrate the lab, but Hopper reminds her that this isn't a training exercise. It's way too risky. Suddenly, Dustin comes over the radio. He explains that he, Steve, Nancy, and Robin are in the Upside Down, but their vehicle crashed into a wall and is now broken. They ask Hopper and Elle to meet them at the cemetery and help pull the car out so they can continue tracking the Demogorgon. Hopper asks about the wall and mentions that they've seen it too. He suspects Holly is behind it and tells the group they have a plan. Nancy takes the radio and asks what the plan is, but Hopper just tells them to hold their position. Then he gives Elle the go-ahead to infiltrate the laboratory. Max explains that after Vecna opened the 4th and final gate, splitting Hawkins in 2, she should have died, and for a moment, she almost did. The scene shifts to her death in the 4th season. After this moment in real time, Max wakes up in a rainbow-lit room inside the Hawkins National Laboratory. She opens a door and finds herself back in Hawkins High School in November of 1959. Max clarifies that she wasn't actually there, she was just observing. Over time, Max realizes she's trapped inside Henry's memories. She notes that being a prisoner presents only a few choices. The first door is to give up entirely, the second second is to accept your fate, and the third is to escape. Max chooses the third door, moving from memory to memory, like running through a labyrinth. One day she hears Kate Bush, her favorite singer. In reality, Lucas was playing that music in the hospital in the real world. Even after all that time, he never gave up, patiently waiting for Max to wake up. Derek sneaks into the secret military base in Hawkins, pretending to be lost. He radios Joyce with the location of a bathroom, which they plan to use as the starting point to dig tunnels and create an escape route for the kids. Meanwhile, in the Upside Down, Elle is preparing to infiltrate the military lab. She wants to uncover what Dr. K is hiding in the locked storage room. After successfully getting past security and letting Hopper onto the base, they head straight for the laboratory. Back at the base, Derek starts asking the kids about Mr. Whatsit. At first, none of them know who he's talking about, but then a girl steps forward and asks if he means Henry. Joyce, Lucas, Murray, and the others are stunned, realizing that the fate of the world might now depend on Derek Turnbow. At the same time, Mike and Will are talking. Will admits he sometimes feels the Demogorgon, even sensing its anger, almost as if it were a part of him. Mike suggests that maybe Will, like Vecna, could control the Demogorgon, but Will thinks that idea is completely insane. Robin notices that Will is trying to look Mike in the eyes and reach out to him, realizing that Will has feelings for Mike. While stuck in the car pressed against the wall, Dustin hears something over the radio and then grabs a map. Nancy is getting frustrated that Hopper told them to wait. Steve suggests going through the wall, but Jonathan warns him not to make decisions after getting trapped in the Upside Down. Nancy defends Steve, reminding Jonathan that Vecna took her little sister and they can't just sit around. At that moment, Dustin chimes in with a discovery. The wall forms a large circle, and the center of the circle is in the Hawkins lab. In other words, this wall might have been created inside the lab itself. He realized this when he connected the interference they had been hearing to the wall. Meanwhile, Max continues telling Holly her story. She explains that she moved through countless memories, which eventually led her to the night Vecna tried to attack her. Max climbed a staircase and found what looked like an exit, a portal showing her in a hospital bed. She started running toward the portal, trying to get back to the real world. But in the red-tinged Upside Down, Henry appeared right behind her. Max ran from him until she reached the cave. Surprisingly, Henry looked terrified. Max explains that there's something in this cave and in these memories that scares him so much he won't go in. The cave became her safe space, her home. Max had chosen door 2, accepting her fate until Holly arrived. Now door 3 has reopened. Max has a plan to get them out, but it will take time. She warns that Henry will return soon and must not know that Holly left for the forest. Max says Holly needs to get back to Henry's house. It's the only way to escape. Holly agrees and asks Max to tell her exactly what to do. In the tunnel, Will and Robin have a quiet moment alone. Robin opens up about Tammy Thompson. For those who forgot, back in Season 3, Robin had already told Steve about Tammy. She explains that in 9th grade, she had a crush on Tammy. Robin had hoped that someday Tammy would feel the same way, but she was too afraid to talk to her. Then Steve showed up in their class. Tammy fell for him, and Robin's fantasy world collapsed. One day, while cleaning out the garage, Robin found a cassette from 4th grade. She could barely recognize the little girl she once was. Back then, Robin had been carefree and fearless, loving every bit of herself. That's when she realized the problem wasn't Tammy, it was her. She just needed to stop being afraid of who she really was. Suddenly, Lucas yells for them to hurry and start digging. Elle creates a diversion, allowing Hopper to sneak up on a scientist in the lab. They grab a key card and try to open a locked door, but the scientist says he doesn't have access. They switch to Plan B. Elle uses her powers to open the door, but before she can, an alarm triggers a sound device that neutralizes her abilities. Meanwhile, Mike and Lucas realize they've been digging in the wrong spot when they hit a pipe in the sink, so they move to a new location. Derek keeps the other kids calm, telling them to relax and not be afraid. Joyce signals Derek to start evacuating the children. One by one, the kids head to the designated exit. Dr. K finds Elle at a table, covering her ears. She says she's been looking for her for a long time. Elle responds that she knows the scientist's name and that her prisoner in the secret room is Henry. She also warns Dr. K that she and her team won't last much longer. Elsewhere, Akers and his men are searching for Hopper. They fire into a closet where they think he's hiding and end up killing a scientist. Hopper fires back, taking out several guards, but his weapon jams. He and Akers engage in hand-to-hand combat. Hopper defeats Akers, but then a tentacle creature from the upside down grabs him and begins choking him. Just then, Dr. K enters the room, calling Hopper a thorn in her side, the reason Elle had such a hard time tracking him. Elle decides to help. Even though her powers are blocked by the sound device, she manages to distract Dr. K, giving Hopper the chance to free himself and knock out the doctor. Derek starts sending the kids through the bathroom one by one, but Mike notices that the pipe they're in is starting to leak. He and Will struggle to hold it back, trying to stop the water from bursting through. Everything is going smoothly until Ashley, a girl who's never seen Mr. Whatsit, walks in and spots Mike and Will trying to stop the leak. She immediately alerts a guard. Derek and the other kids rush through the bathroom, but the military breaks down the door and captures Will, Derek, Mike, and Joyce. Still, 5 of the kids manage to escape through the tunnels. 3 of them reach Murray and his truck with Robin's help, while the other 2 are guided through the tunnels by Lucas. Hopper tells Elle that she needs to get to the forest, where the kryptonite won't reach her. He gives her a compass and instructs her to head to the cemetery to meet Nancy and the rest of the group. Hopper plans to blow himself up in the room where Vecna is locked away, intending to finish him once and for all. He tells Elle how proud he is of her, how far she's come, and who she's become. He expresses his love for Jane before leaving the room with the keycard, closing the door behind him. Hopper walks down the corridor to the locked room where Henry is held. Memories of his daughter Sarah's death flash before him, and Hopper starts to cry. He opens the door and steps inside. At the secret military base in Hawkins, Will gets a sudden premonition. He sees something rushing toward the base. He collapses and warns, "They're coming!" Electricity flickers across the entire facility as a Demogorgon emerges from underground and attacks the soldiers. Another Demogorgon appears. Meanwhile, cracks start opening across Hawkins again. The Demogorgons are not only attacking the base, but also hunting for Lucas and Robin, hoping to capture the remaining kids. Chaos erupts everywhere. Back in the upside-down lab, once the sound-blocking devices are disabled, the door swings open, and Hopper emerges unharmed. Vecna isn't inside. Instead, Hopper leads Elle into the room, where she discovers Kali connected to a device. It turns out it wasn't Vecna at all. It was Kali, a character from Season 2. Unlike Elle, Kali doesn't have telekinesis, but she can create hallucinations. How long Dr. K held her prisoner and why she was locked in that room remains a mystery, likely to be revealed in the second volume. In the real world, Mike and the others spot a figure stepping out of a portal from the upside down. Vecna appears. Henry, also known as One, looking different than ever. The U.S. Army opens fire, but it doesn't faze him. Using his telekinetic powers, he effortlessly defeats the soldiers. In the tunnels, Lucas and the other kids are now surrounded on both sides by Demogorgons. Vecna approaches Will. Joyce, going full protective mom mode, orders Vecna to stay away from her son, but he effortlessly throws her aside with his powers. Then he lifts Will into the air, pulling him toward himself. Vecna reveals that he chose the kids of Hawkins to reshape the universe. As he explains his plan, we see Demogorgons dragging other children into the Upside Down. Vecna claims that children are easy to break, mold, and control. They're the perfect vessels. He says Will was the first to break so easily, and through him, he realized he could achieve everything he ever dreamed of. In the end, Vecna doesn't harm Will. He simply releases him and slips back into the Upside Down. One Demogorgon charges at Robin, another moves toward Lucas, and a third bursts from underground and heads straight for Mike. At that moment, Will remembers what Robin once told him. He needs to stop being afraid of who he really is. We then see a small, lonely Will on the swings. Little Mike approaches him, and eventually they become best friends, even playing Dungeons and Dragons together. Flashbacks show Will with his older brother Jonathan building Castle Byers, showing his drawings to their mother, and running through the woods in his Will the Wise costume from his favorite tabletop game. Back in the present, Will's love for Mike empowers him. Using telekinesis, he lifts the Demogorgons into the air. His eyes roll back white, his arm stretches out like Vecna's, and he breaks the Demogorgons' limbs, destroying them completely. Will collapses to his knees, his eyes returning to normal, but blood begins to trickle from his nose, just like Elle and Henry experienced. The second part of this summary will be released after the new year. Subscribe so you don't miss it.